Hello and welcome to the Supporting, Securing, and Improving Azure, Microsoft 365, and Microsoft-centric environments EcoCast event by Actual Tech Media. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a great event lined up for you today. On this event, you'll hear from experts at Synology, NetApp, Druva, and Metallic. What an exciting event. This is our first EcoCast of 2021, and it's going to be a lot of fun. In case you haven't been on an EcoCast before, you should know that we at Actual Tech Media created the EcoCast and MegaCast event series to help educate IT professionals such as yourselves about the latest and greatest in enterprise technology, to help you get all your questions answered and see some of the most innovative enterprise technology in the world today on one virtual event. You can do it from the comfort of your home or home office, whatever it might be. And so we're here to get your questions answered. And speaking of which, we want you to use the questions box there. It's in your audience console. It's on the left-hand side of the slides window. You can click on the questions tab. I see many of you already saying good morning, hello, and welcome from across the United States and around the world, so we appreciate that. But we also want your technical questions. We'll be doing a live Q&A session with each of the expert presenters on the event today, so get your questions in early. We're all former IT practitioners here at Actual Tech Media. We know how tough it is out there in the world of enterprise technology, and we want to help you to solve your technology challenges. There are also a number of handouts available for download there in your audience console. There are links as well as PDF assets. Make sure you click on those before the event ends, because they won't be readily accessible after the event. Those are there in the handouts tab. We also want this to be a social event. You can use the Twitter icon. It's on the bottom of the screen, and you can tweet directly from your audience console without ever having to go out to Twitter. The hashtag for today's event will be automatically appended when you use that Twitter widget. We also have social media icons for our YouTube channel, our Twitter homepage, and LinkedIn on the top right-hand side of the console. And then finally, we have a number of prizes that we'll be announcing throughout the event. We'll have free Amazon $500 gift cards. You must be live in attendance to qualify. There are a number of other prize terms and conditions. You'll find those in the handouts tab if you scroll down. All prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. And then new here in 2021, we've got a new prize we're doing. We encourage your technical questions, of course, and to help encourage those, we're going to do a Ask the Best Question, a $50 Amazon gift card prize for the event. We will be contacting the prize winners after the event. So again, get those great questions in early. We do appreciate those. Now, Actual Tech Media, through generous attendees such as yourselves, has supported the charities you see here on the screen over the years that we've been doing these events. We've donated thousands of dollars to these charities. So if you win a prize and you say, hey, I've got enough stuff already from Amazon, I'd like to donate that prize value to someone who really needs it, we would love to help you do that. The hashtag, as I said, for today's event is ATM EcoCast. That will be automatically appended when you tweet from your console. You can follow Actual Tech Media on Twitter and me as well. I'll be your moderator, David M. Davis. So thank you in advance. Always glad to socialize over on Twitter about enterprise technology. You can also subscribe to all the Actual Tech Media social channels, YouTube, Facebook, and the 10 on Tech podcast over in the iTunes store, as well as LinkedIn. That's where we post all of our latest and greatest content. Now, before I introduce you to our first presenter on the EcoCast today, I just want to do a little bit of stage setting about today's topic, supporting, securing, and improving Azure and Microsoft 365 environments. And to do that, let's talk about Microsoft 365 and Azure as well. I mean, in preparation for talking about this topic, I did a fair amount of research. There's a lot of statistics out there, but the statistics that I did find were impressive. 1 in 5 companies now use Microsoft 365. By user count, Microsoft 365 is the most widely used cloud service by user count, which I found interesting. One study found over 650,000 plus active users of Microsoft 365 alone in the United States, and I can only expect that those numbers have increased with the pandemic and more technology professionals working from home, the study said that there were 75 million daily active users of Teams, and that Azure has closed the gap with AWS in terms of user adoption. So a lot of great research out there. I mean, when it comes to adopting, either Azure or Microsoft 365, if you haven't already, there's a number of gotchas that you may or may not have heard of, and I think everyone should be aware of. First off is that data protection and disaster recovery aren't just automatically included. They're not just built in. They are things that you need to take into consideration. So just because you move, let's say, your storage or your email service, whatever it might be, into Microsoft 365 or Azure, and they're providing the computing power for that, that doesn't mean that it's automatically protected by some sort of data protection or disaster recovery service. You still need to have those in place. Also, don't assume that the services are secure just out of the box. Ensure that you look at all the security tools that are available for Azure and Microsoft 365 and consider at least some of those tools. You want to do whatever you can do to protect your data, just as you would do if this data was being stored and these applications were being run on premises. Also, of course, consider the ongoing cost because these are consumption-based, pricing models. You don't want to be surprised. There are a number of tools out there to help you to manage costs. Also, look for ways to unify management of these cloud services. Yes, you can have too many clouds and too many SaaS services. You want to try to focus your efforts on, for example, just say Microsoft 365 and Azure. It's multi-cloud sounds cool, but in my opinion, from talking to IT professionals out there and working with these cloud services myself, having applications and data spread across multiple clouds isn't always a great thing. And then finally, applications. Don't forget your applications. That's why you're using these services to begin with, your applications and your data. That's what it's all about. Don't lift and shift unless there's no other choice. Look for opportunities to do things more efficiently as you move your applications and data to the cloud. And now I want to hear from you out there in the audience. So I've got a few poll questions here, four poll questions to be exact. The first one is on the screen, and that is, do you use Microsoft 365 today? And I'll share the results of this poll with you so you can kind of see how you stack up with your peers on this event. Hopefully that's of interest to you. If you haven't answered these polls before, simply do it right there in the slides window. Just select yes or no, but perhaps you plan to do it in the next 12 months, or no, you don't have any specific plans, still learning about these services. So I'll give everyone a moment to answer these questions, and I'll share the results. All right, thank you for those responses. We do appreciate it. Let me share the results of this poll question now with you. And it looks like 79% of the folks on the event today are already using Microsoft 365, followed by 6% who have plans to adopt it in the next 12 months. So that totals roughly 85% of folks on the event today. So thank you for that. 14% out there don't have any specific plans and are still learning about these services. Next question here, second question. Do you take extra steps to A, secure, or B, protect your Microsoft 365 data in the cloud? And again, I'll give you a moment to answer this one. I'm curious specifically around the results to this. All right, I see a lot of responses coming in. Thank you for those. Let me go ahead and share the results of this now. And it looks like 55% said yes. Kudos to you. Very smart decision. 19%, awesome, have plans in the next 12 months, and 25% learning about why we should better protect and secure our Microsoft 365 data in the cloud. So thank you for that. Third question here, and that is, do you use Azure today? And let me go ahead and share the results on this one. And 59% said yes, they do use Azure. 13% have plans to do so in the next 12 months, and 27% still learning about Azure. And then final question here before I introduce you to our first presenter. The question on the screen is simply, what's your time frame kind of overall for adding new or updating IT solutions at your company, specifically around Microsoft solutions, whether it's Azure, Microsoft 365, or even just on-premises Microsoft-oriented IT solutions.
And now it's time to kick off today's EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce you to our first presenter. That is Mr. Chris Alden, Senior Sales Manager at Synology. Chris, it's great to have you. Take it away.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction and everything here. Today, I'll be covering how Synology can provide you with complete backups of your Microsoft 365 data, completely license-free. My name is Chris Alden, and I'm a Senior Sales Manager with Synology out here in Seattle. So what I want to do first is kind of open up with a case study that we recently did with a major orthopedic implant developer. Now, they found themselves in a situation that many businesses are finding themselves in. They needed to back up their cloud and offsite data, particularly their Office 365 deployment. Now, with over 2,400 mailboxes, licensing fees for maintaining their data became a huge financial burden for the company. However, by using our solution, they were not only able to back up all 2,400 of their mailboxes and other data locally, they were also able to quickly and easily set up off-site disaster recovery, both in the cloud and at another location, simply by getting another Synology NAS. Now, because our software comes free with our hardware, they were able to save over $60,000 in licensing fees while maintaining their data security and preparing themselves for any potential disasters. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about how you can set up safe, quick, and easy to access backups of all of your Microsoft 365 data, as well as any of your local data, such as your VMs, and then I'll show you how easy it is to send this to an off-site backup target or to your cloud storage provider, or even to both in tandem. So first, we'll discuss backing up your organization's Microsoft 365 accounts and cloud data. Before I dive into that, though, I want to cover a bit of Synology in case you're unfamiliar with us and you're just kind of being introduced. Now, our hardware covers the gamut from terabyte to well over a petabyte of storage capability. And coupled with a very large range of performance options, we can cover multiple use cases in a single deployment. This is made possible through Disk Station Manager, or DSM for short. It's the operating system that powers every Synology device, regardless of if you're utilizing a 2-bay desktop unit or a 24-bay rack-mounted unit. The idea behind this platform is that it is fully customizable, so you can easily tailor it to exactly what your use case is with a variety of different first and third-party applications. Now, one of these first-party applications is Active Backup from Microsoft 365. This is our all-in-one solution to back up your entire 365 platform. All of your emails, calendars, your SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and Exchange files can be backed up into a singular on-prem device for safekeeping and fast local access. Perhaps best of all, or at least most popularly, there are no additional licensing fees to accomplish this. You simply download our software on your device and get started. Now, a question that we run into a lot is pretty simple. Why is it necessary to back up my Microsoft 365 data, since, after all, it does exist in the cloud? Well, let's talk about that. If you aren't familiar with Microsoft's shared responsibility model, it looks something like this on screen here. The hosting, the maintenance of the networks, and the data centers, that of course all falls onto Microsoft. However, managing your company's information, accounts, and all of those identities, that all falls onto you. Even in the service agreement, they recommend that you regularly back up all of your data from here using third-party services to make sure that you're covered in case any issues arise on any end of the spectrum. Now, this shared responsibility model opens you up to some particular threats and potential issues that you'll definitely want to think about. The first is accidental deletion, which is actually one of the leading causes of data loss. Anything that you may have accidentally gotten rid of, may only be retained for a period of 30 days. After that, it's completely gone forever and it's irrecoverable. The next is ransomware attacks. 2020 was the worst year to date for ransomware and other similar cyber attacks, and I'm sure a lot of us here in the audience have had some experience with this, unfortunately. A lot of these attacks have evolved to target software as a service, especially as of late, and without having a point to roll back to and recover, you could find yourself in a pretty terrible position pretty quickly. Lastly, these data retention regulations may not be the best fit for your organization. Certain industries require data to be held for a certain amount of time, sometimes for years. Saving all of that in the cloud could prove to be really costly, especially for some organizations, and it may not even be offered by all of these different service providers. So let's actually jump into a demo here real quick. And what I want to do is I want to show you our Microsoft 365 backup platform and kind of how easy it is to use. So I'm going to start a screen share here, and let me know if that pops up. Right here is DSM. So this is our operating system on every Synology device. If you're familiar with Mac, Windows, or Linux, you should feel pretty at home here. Very simple setup. You have your desktop and some of your choice applications. Now here at the top left, I'm going to click on the main menu, and this will show us all the different applications we have currently installed on our Synology NAS. And the one I'm most interested in right now is Active Backup for Microsoft 365, which again is available for free download. Now when I open this up, I'm greeted with the Overview tab. Now this is our single pane of glass that's going to show us everything that we're currently doing within this software. So here we can see our protected services. We can see we have a few separate accounts, 10 mailboxes, 36 different SharePoint sites, 5 contacts. That's all fine and good. Over here is the backup summary, and this is great because this will immediately show you if there's any issues. If we see green, this means that our task completed successfully, there was no hitches. If we see gray, that means a task, there wasn't a backup task scheduled for that day. And then this orange here, this is actually throwing out a caution. This doesn't mean that it failed, it means that it had to skip something in order to successfully complete. If there was a failed job for whatever reason, it would be red, and you simply click on it, it'll open up a log, and you can see exactly why it failed and then go into further detail there. Now back at the Overview tab, scroll down a little bit, and our Activities tab will show us if any backups are currently running. Our log, again, this will just show us all of our detailed logs for easy access. Our service usage will show us exactly what is taking up the most data of our backups. And similarly, our Usage tab will show us which accounts are taking up the most data. So you can see this John S. account here. This is taking up the majority of the data that we have stored on our device. Transferred size will show you the bandwidth over time, especially useful for organizations that have many different backup tasks running concurrently. You can see which ones are taking up the most bandwidth over the day or over the hour. Now if I click here on our task list real quick, we can see we currently have this task called John S. Backup. Now to create a task, I'd simply click Create, but what I'm going to do is click Edit and show you kind of the same functionality on here. So here's the general information. This shows us what the domain admin email address is, and we can change the task name. We can enable the Active Backup portal, which I'll show you in a bit. But when we dive into the user and the group and the site settings, this is where it really gets kind of hands-on. So here we can see all of the different users that we have access to through this John S. admin account, and we can select exactly what we're backing up from any of them. We can either back up every single drive or mailbox and then select if we want to back up their archives or anything of that nature, or just specific users. Now, of course, this works on a group level as well. Say you want to back up your entire accounting department's emails, but you're not interested in their calendars, anything of that nature you can set up very simply right here. It works the same for your SharePoint sites. All of these can be backed up. Simple pick and choose which ones, or you can click this to highlight all of them. And then our auto discovery service. So this is great if you have a backup task set up that's kind of backing up all of the basic things in your organization. You can make sure that anytime you add a new user or add a new group or site, that you're backing up exactly what you want to be from them. Anytime you hire a new employee, you can make sure that you're backing up their mailbox, for instance. And then here under policy, you can change exactly when this is backing up. So right now it's a scheduled backup. I can set my schedule, run it daily, run it on specific days at certain times, for instance, when everybody's out of the office. Or I could even set this to a continuous backup. Anytime that I'm getting an email or making a change to one of my Microsoft 365 files, that will automatically be backed up, and I can rest assured that they'll be safe there. File version retention policy, that's pretty self-explanatory, but this is where you can set that to preserve all versions or a number of days for historical versions. And that's really it. That's how easy it is to get set up. You simply log into the admin access account, set up the backup, and then you're good to go. You have all of that data secured on your device. So quickly stop my screen share here, and we will jump back into a quick slide. So now that our 365 data is all backed up, let's talk about some of the ways that we can recover it in case we do find that we're missing certain files from these backups. Since we have all of our local data now from all these cloud accounts, content search is a really easy way to find anything that we may be looking for. It has the ability to search through specific attachments as well. So as long as you can remember some of the names or keywords from your documents, you can pull up exactly what you're looking for. Granular recovery allows your users to recover files under their ownership without the help of IT. If allowed, they can search through their own backups for missing folders or files and restore them directly in place, minimizing IT's time spent doing small tasks such as recovering attachments or emails that may have gone missing. So, again, I'm going to show you that real quick. Screen share, jump in, and what we'll do here is we'll open up the main menu once more, and we'll open up the active backup from Microsoft 365 portal. Now, for this, it's going to open up in a separate browser tab. If you are a user that does have permission to access this, you'll simply be viewing your specific role within here. So I'll scroll down and find Snow John here and access this. Now, as you can see here, this is an admin account. We've done a ton of testing on this as a sales team, so we have a lot of random files here, restore, active restores, different documents. So it's going to be a little bit complicated to just thumb through and find something specific. That's where that granular recovery and that content search comes from. Now, here's a few points. In the middle here, we can see all of the different files in this particular structure. Here we can go to specific file trees on the left-hand side. And at the bottom, we have our backup point. So we can scroll to any point in time that we may have data that we need to recover. For instance, I know I had a certain file in October, and I don't have it now, and I have no idea when I could have deleted it. I'll simply scroll back to when exactly I knew I had it, and now we'll search. Now, maybe I don't know the name of the specific file, but if I even search a file extension, such as .jpeg, I'll quickly pull up all of the .jpegs across my entire deployment that at least this account has access to. Again, this is an admin account, so I'm searching through everything. If you had a user account, it would only be through what that Microsoft 365 user has access to. This works for pretty much anything. If I search book, we'll pull up all of the files with book, including a folder structure called notebooks, and then all of these files. Now let's say that book 1 is the one that I need here. So I have two options when I highlight it. I can restore it directly in place, which will put it exactly in the file tree that it came from, but if I don't know where that was, and that's part of the problem, I can also export it. By clicking export, I simply save a copy. I can download this directly to my desktop, and there we go. I have a copy of that data exactly as it was on October 1st of 2020. So that's how easy it is to recover files utilizing our platform. And jumping back in here, so we're all set with our Microsoft 365 data, but now we want to make sure that it's more secure by sending the data to another location. So let's discuss setting up an offsite backup. Now, with another piece of license-free software called Snapshot Replication, we can set up snapshots on our Synology device at any scheduling that we need, as frequently as every 5 minutes with very minimal performance impact. This software allows you to replicate your data to an off-site server, enabling simple disaster recovery. So real quick, I'll show you that as well. Jump back in here, we can see DSM. I'm going to open up the main menu, and this time we'll open up Snapshot Replication. Now here's the overview. This again shows us just the basics of what our software is doing. We can see that we currently have this much data protected with snapshots, and we can see what our recently taken snapshots are. If I click on the Snapshots tab, we can see that we're currently scheduling our active backup folder to be snapshotted. This is all of our Microsoft 365 data that's being saved. We want to make sure that that's being snapshotted as well. And here's important data. Now this is just kind of employee data that's very important to us. So I want to make sure that I'm replicating this to an off-site location. And that's made really simple here. Simply click on the, as you probably guessed, the Replication tab here. And we can see that we're currently backing up this important data folder. To create a new task, we simply click Create. But again, I'll show you this task here. So I'll click on the task that I want to show you, click Action and Edit. Now here it'll show us the exact server name or the IP address that we're sending this data to. I have to log in as the admin account here, or an account that has admin credentials. Then I'll click on Schedule. So again, it just works exactly the same as the other software. We enable our replication schedule. We say exactly when we want this to occur. Again, as frequently as every 5 minutes is an option here. And then under the Advanced tab, we can see if we want to replicate scheduled local snapshots, any of the things that are saving directly to this NAS, we can also save to another NAS automatically. I'll click Cancel Out here, and it's really simple to do all of this. As well as to recover it, you simply click on the Recovery tab, look at any of your folders, and click Recover. You can roll back to any of your particular snapshots, or you can pull specific files out of those different rollbacks here. So that just about does it for me here today. I'll be answering some questions here shortly, but I wanted to let you know if you are interested in giving Synology a try for yourself or for your organization, we are offering a limited 10% discount off to attendees of today's event. Simply reach out to SAC_community@Synology.com for more information, and we'll make sure that this information is readily available for you as well. Feel free to get in touch with us with any other questions that you may have as well. My job is entirely to answer those, as well as offer project consultation for you and your clients, personalized trainings on anything that you may be curious about with our software and hardware platforms, as well as connect you with our reseller partner program that comes with a whole slew of additional benefits and incentives for working with us. So again, thank you very much, and I'll take a few questions here.
Great presentation and demo, Chris. Really, really appreciate that. I've actually had a Synology and have been using DSM for many years now. And so it's cool to see it here on the EcoCast, and as well also to see all the cool new features that you guys have been implementing over time. So again, I want to encourage I want to encourage everyone to check out the survey that Chris mentioned. It's there in the Handouts tab, and that will enter you for a chance to win a Synology DS 2020 Plus NAS, so make sure that you fill that out before you go. So let's see, lots of great questions coming in, Chris. So many, I don't know that we have time, honestly, for all of these. Feel free to pick out any that you see there in the folder that, you call out your name. But I'm just going to start from the top. So first one that I see here is they're asking, does Synology, actually, how do you compare to kind of other solutions that are in the market when it comes to pricing? I think that's a good question from Patrick.
For certain. So really with us, the major factor is purchasing the hardware, and then we really don't want any kind of additional pricing going on there. So compared to a lot of solutions, we're often kind of ranked as one of the cheaper solutions to get started with. All of our devices do ship diskless, so you do have to get your hard drives and everything else as well, but we do work with a whole variety of different manufacturers, especially Seagate, Western Digital, people of that nature. So starting with us, really, you have the cost of the hardware, which is already fairly low in competition with a lot of others, and then on top of that, there's no additional software overhead, especially for any of the features I showed you here today. Cool.
And I want to call everyone's attention to the poll question there that's in the slides window. Just what additional information would you like about the Synology solution? We'll leave that up while we continue some more Q&A here. Next question from Michael. He's asking, what are the back-end connectivity options for the Synology NAS?
So we have quite a few, and forgive me if I'm misunderstanding the question slightly, but for physical connections, most of our kind of business devices, business class, ship with at least 4 1 gig connections, and then a step above that you have 2 10 gig connections as well. And then the majority of our devices do have PCIe expandability, so you can add 10 gig SFP plus connections, or really kind of a lot of the things that you may be looking for. They're all fully expandable.
Great. Great. And then next up, Charles is asking, for Synology, do you also allow differential backups or only full backups?
So they are kind of depending on the platform. So for instance, with Active Backup here, we do have Active Backup for Business as well. And how this works is kind of takes an initial backup of all of the data, but then only backs up the changes that are made to the data there. So it's not going to be a full backup every time. It's simply backing up anything that is changed via change log tracking.
Okay. And then Patrick's asking, what about dedupe? Is that available?
Yes, there is global deduplication on a lot of the different data there. For the, let me double check here, for it's basically not standard to all of the data that's happening on the Synology device, but any of your backups that are kind of occurring through the Active Backup platform, those will be globally deduplicated.
Great. Brian's asking, is it possible to do a specific point in time recovery, or does that recovery include all objects, or how does that work exactly?
So specifically with snapshot replication, for instance, or even with the Microsoft portal that I showed you, you can scroll back to any particular point in time, if we're going back a couple months or whenever we first implemented the solution, and you can either recover specific pieces of this data, if it's a specific file structure or even a specific file. You can either bring that into your kind of current solution by downloading that specific file, or you could roll back basically the entire platform to that specific date. Sometimes in the events of ransomware, we do see people needing to maybe roll back a week or something, and unfortunately they lose a week of data, but they are back on their feet. They do have their data integrity back, and they are able to continue working.
Very nice. Patrick's asking if users can restore their own data.
Yes, so users can restore their own data there. Again, depending on the permissions that you're given. So if your IT admin does want to allow you to at least access your own data through your Microsoft 365, or even with regular Active Backup of your PC workstation's data, you'd simply have in your disk tray kind of the access to the portal. You'd open up, you'd see all of your own data throughout kind of however long it's been captured. And then you can roll back through that timeline that I showed you and pull up any specific files, which is really useful if people are accidentally deleting emails. Then they can kind of recover those on their own without having to bother anybody else.
Very nice. The next question, Ben's asking, can the Synology M365 backup restore solution restore individual messages to a mailbox?
Yes, any missing emails or anything, you will be able to restore as well.
Excellent, excellent. And then Adam's asking, can you talk about off-site cloud backup integrations, for example, with Backblaze?
Yeah, for sure. So we do work with Backblaze. We actually work with several dozen different cloud providers at this point. We work with kind of all of the major ones, the AWS, Azure, Dropbox, Backblaze. We also offer our own cloud backup service now that specifically works with Synology NASes, so really well integrated within there. But basically, any of these kind of bucket storage cloud service providers, typically you can access as well. So depending on who you're working with, we most likely work with them directly out of our software.
Excellent. Vincenta is asking, does Synology offer trial versions to see the performance?
Yes, so especially within kind of our reseller partner program, if you are a reseller or if you are an end user that's interested, simply work with one of our partners, and we do offer kind of what we call loaner units. So we would give you a unit for 30 days or however long you need the testing for. 30 is kind of our default. And then you give it a shot, you do everything you need for it. We'll be there to help you troubleshooting anything. And then, if you like it, perfect, you can send it back and purchase one. Or if, didn't work out for you or it isn't exactly what you need for the organization, send it back. There's no need to continue further from there. We just want to make sure that this is working for exactly who needs it to.
Great. And then see another question here. Can I back up servers that are running databases like Microsoft SQL and Exchange?
Yes, so you can fully back up servers that are running database services. So to back up those servers, we do have essentially a checkbox called Application Aware, and you want to make sure that's enabled in the backup task. And then the system will flush the data to the disk, take snapshots to ensure its data consistency, and you should be all set to go. We really just kind of recommend that you run backup tasks for those kind of application-aware backups during non-peak hours. Really just want to avoid kind of reduced system performance where possible.
Got it. And then what about, how do I select a Synology NAS to use with Active Backup? Does Active Backup work on all the Synology NASs or just specific models?
So really the majority of our devices at this point, anything Plus series or above, so pretty much all of our business class units, and typically most people, unless they're just a home user backing up their kind of family photos or their PC or things, they'll have a Plus series unit. Even if it is a 2-bay, it still is capable of running this software. So you can back up basically to kind of figure out exactly what device you should be getting. You want to calculate the kind of storage space that your Microsoft 365 data is going to be taking. So once you have that calculated through Microsoft 365, you'll kind of have a better idea of if you should be going with a 2-bay, 4, 12 or 24-bay unit there.
Great. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions. There's still a lot more questions we'll have to get back to after the event. But excellent presentation. Love the live demo. Thank you so much for being on, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I want to encourage everyone still to fill out the poll question if you haven't done that already. And check out the handout there from Synology, which is a survey to be entered to win a Synology NAS. So now it's time for our first prize drawing. We have an Amazon $500 gift card. This is going to Daniel Comerford from California. Congratulations, Daniel Comerford from California. Still 2 more gift cards to give out on the event today, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And with that, let's keep the EcoCast moving here. I'm excited to introduce now our next presenter. Welcome, Mr. Jeff Whitaker, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Cloud Data Services at NetApp. Jeff, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Great to have you. Take it away.
All right. Well, we're glad to talk to everybody today. What I'm going to be talking about is with NetApp, many people know us as a storage company, an environment delivering services that operate in the enterprise environment, in the data centers themselves. So really what we've been doing over the last, I think about 8-9 years now in different forms is building solutions that help the data experience and help the storage experience in the cloud itself. So in this discussion, I really want to talk about solving those enterprise expectations as you're looking at moving into the cloud, or you're already in the cloud and you're experiencing some challenges. What can we do to help deliver that? And that's across a broad array of activities. So I'm going to just dive right in. One of the notes there, I handle the all marketing activities for the Azure portfolio within the NetApp portfolio. So the Azure environment, everything that we do within Microsoft. So when I'm talking about expectations for the cloud, what I'm really talking about is as the move has been made, or services are being delivered, or services are being utilized in the Microsoft environment, what type of scenarios are we dealing with, or are we seeing with our customer base? So one of the areas is the Azure cloud. Why do people move there? Why is it being utilized? And a lot of it's around the agility and flexibility and those common themes about more of an infrastructure delivered and services delivered cloud experience in that environment. But when getting there are a number of concerns that often pop up. Effectively, there's the knowledge piece of it. It's a new experience for many. We have a lot of customers that have been now pretty heavy in the Azure space, but really coming and changing the way that business is done there. Dealing with security, some of the complexity scenarios of some of the environments or building environments in the cloud, and then availability and performance, those things that people try to deal with, which a lot of times has to be built in, or often, some of the services will deliver some of these pieces for you. And then the other side of this is around the Office 365 experience. And again, it's about getting some of those capabilities that are cloud-related capabilities, but delivered as more of a complete service, a storage as a service or a full platform as a service model, so that there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about. But again, we still see some concerns from the data side of things, which is data protected? And when we talk about protected, Microsoft guarantees availability. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guarantees around what this service delivers. But what about if you make a mistake or somebody within your organization makes a mistake in the environment? I've heard of this on big news where a company has deleted their entire environment. And it's like your availability metrics are going to guarantee that you operate that way, which is not, so how do you back up? You require backups and everything else that you do. Protecting against user error, protecting against ransomware, security breaches, some of these scenarios, because security often is extremely robust within the cloud environment, but how do you build in your security profiles within your environment as well? So I'll talk a little, so I'm going to run through a number of the different solutions and services here, really around solving the challenges of the migration path, right? So maybe you've migrated some of the items into the cloud. You're looking at more complex scenarios, and we have what we have deemed the unmigratable stuff. There's a lot of different things, such as those serious use cases or those serious workloads, and how do we get those moved into the cloud as well. So from the NetApp standpoint, I'll just do a quick kind of overview here. Really what we're focusing on is, your app environments or your needs, and solving the enterprise app struggles. File services, that's really a big one in the cloud, and different things are being built up there, but solving those challenges. Cloud native apps, AI, ML, but then going down to the bottom half over here, which is addressing backup, addressing compliance and security, data migration, containerization, so dealing with the container environments as you move there. And then lastly on here is the resource management. So we deliver a lot of services. The center here is really looking at your environment, right? You have a data center, or you have the cloud, or you've got a hybrid environment that deals with both. For years, NetApp has been solving the challenge of the data on premises, and we've got a lot of different flash-related services and these hyper-converged environment services there in that place of it, and even in the object side of it. But today I'm talking more about the right side here, your data in the cloud. Solving the challenges with the storage side of it with a service called Azure NetApp Files, which I'll talk about. Cloud volumes on tap to get your experience of NetApp, but yet get that in the cloud-delivered environment. And then having a management component, Cloud Manager, to kind of control all these. And then address all these pieces across the board. When it comes to one of the main challenges we have seen over the years with the cloud is it's really addressing the files in the cloud. And the big one here is on the right if you look at performance, reliability, and data management. As you'd say, you've expected that in the data center when you buy services, when you buy capabilities, when you buy hardware, whatever it is in that environment, you expect those things. So as you make that move into the cloud, there's a certain level of expectation that is there as well. So from a performance standpoint, making sure that you have latency and low latency and throughput, availability, reliable environments, and making sure that when you're looking at your architecture, storage we have seen with customers in the cloud has been the bottleneck from a performance of the overall environment. So solving that challenge for customers was a key thing. And when we say a key thing, we're talking about a key requirement from Microsoft. So Microsoft and NetApp built what we call a first-party service that is Microsoft's, where we deliver NetApp technology under the covers for a service that Microsoft offers on Azure. And it's really to address those enterprise file environments. When customers are moving large amounts of their infrastructure into Azure, how do you solve that file need in there? How do you solve that shared file access need, such as the Linux space with NFS or the Windows space with the S&D protocols, but really solving all of that in the cloud itself. And then from an on-premises standpoint, from a cloud standpoint, getting on-premises class availability and performance, and delivering it in a way that you fully expect to deal with things when you're in the Azure environment itself. It's all consumption based. It's just a Microsoft service, but it's delivering value from the file side of things. And then bringing in the NetApp technology from snapshots, clones, replication. And when we talk snapshots, we've done this for 25 years or 27 years, where a NetApp snapshot does not increase the data footprint. And that's extremely important when we're talking about the cloud, where you pay for every bit and byte. So if you can do more backups on a regular basis for your environment there and not have to pay the tax of added consumption, that's a big value for you. And it's something that you think simply is, just kind of came to be expected from NetApp for decades. And then delivering that, as I said, in a consistent fashion. And it's really around helping you migrate these unmigratable apps. We're talking latencies. We're talking sub-millisecond latencies, so database apps. SAP, we are certified to run SAP HANA production workloads. So some of these scenarios, we're talking serious workloads. This is moving the big stuff, moving the business critical stuff that runs your environments, and having the confidence without having to redesign and re-architect the environment. And you can see some of the workloads and verticals that we address this in. So again, reducing risk is one of the big ones. Guaranteed availability, built-in data protection, lowering costs. When you remove the storage bottleneck, you no longer need to over-provision compute just to try to force performance out of your environment. We've seen 60% reductions in just compute environments for this. But then also saving time, right? Making it very easy. It's deployable. It's stuff you expect from the environment. There we go. And now it's really kind of diving into some of the other side of the services, is really enterprise-ifying. And I made that word up just a moment ago, and maybe somebody else can claim fame to it, but I don't know. But really, bringing some of those enterprise characteristics, those things that you expect when you're moving core environments or core required infrastructure into the cloud. One of the big ones that we've started, that we've been working on over the last year here has been, and previous that through another company, but is the NetApp Virtual Desktop Service. And one of the things here is really delivering, management, automation, and everything to take control over your full virtual desktop cycle. And when I'm talking about virtual desktop service, this isn't something that is a complete service. It runs on top of your virtual desktop environment. In the case of Microsoft, it's Windows Virtual Desktop. So NetApp has delivered a service that helps manage and automate and make it very easy for you to deploy in this complicated remote work environments that we're all dealing with today. But being able to deliver it, make it consistent, make it easy, and then also optimize your infrastructure utilization to deal with costs and everything. But really, a big one here is when I say the enterprise side of this, it allows you to scale. It's a big one that we have customers delivering thousands of users on remote desktop environments or virtual desktop environments. And the virtual desktop service that NetApp delivers really helps simplify that management, the control plane, all those different pieces to make it very easy for you to make the move into an Azure Windows virtual desktop environment as well. And plus, it's a native environment, so it's extremely it's all Azure from that standpoint, and we put a management platform on top of it. All right, so some of these, this is, SaaS delivered, right? This is a software as a service. You go buy the virtual desktop service off of the Azure Marketplace. So it's just a service that you go there, and then you can sit that on top of and deploy your Windows virtual desktop environments, but do it with enterprise-class capabilities, open APIs, user identity, so a lot of functionality from this standpoint, but really to address some of this resource scaling and optimization. As you start to build out larger and larger environments, the one thing that you struggle with often, or I see customers struggling with often, is that controlling the resources as that scale starts to grow. So having tools that really help you keep your costs under control is an important one. And another tool that NetApp offers, and it really helps in this, especially this virtual desktop environment space, is dealing with the global distributed environments. So when you're talking about files that you may have core environments sitting in the Americas, but you need all this file access within Asia and Europe because you've got remote work environments and all of these, it's important to not have multiple copies of the data sets everywhere, so that you get out of sync and you have all these struggles. So it's really, we have a tool called the Global File Cache, which is another service on the marketplace that allows you to take that core central environment and distribute it across all of your locations in the cloud, but yet manage it from a central place. So again, bringing some controls into there, bringing in some management capabilities from the IT organization itself, but yet being able to distribute this broadly. And then another service that we offer here is around the Office 365 side of things. So when Microsoft delivers Office 365, as I kind of touched on, one of the challenges that we've seen with customers is making sure that you have access to all of your Outlook environment, all your Outlook data, all of your SharePoint data, all of your OneDrive data. That stuff is always available and always ready for users to use to access. We use Office 365 quite heavily, I think, across the entire corporation, but we have come to expect that it's just there, right? It's almost like the experience level has been as though it's just, from a user standpoint, we don't see anything a whole heck of a lot different. We just have more access to the actual data environments from multiple areas. Mm-hmm. But from a management piece of this, the big piece is this is where some of these virus and ransomware and accidental deletion, I swear this is probably one of the biggest issues that we see inside of customers, is somebody that has access makes a mistake. And, usually it's not the people that know the system 100% or whatever it is, but it's just a simple mistake. Well, we saw a banking company that deleted thousands and thousands of users. And it's like that some of these concerns, and then insider threat, ransomware, all these pieces that are more people trying to do harm. So NetApp offers a service called SaaS Backup, which runs as a complete service where we will manage the backup side of the environment. So we will dive into, pull from, as I said, the SharePoint, the OneDrive, those environments, pull that out, and then deliver that as a complete service to you. So, and then have the data, have access to it, allow you to do recovery points, a lot of different services, but really the goal is to protect your data from all of the different Office 365 services and offer it at even down to a user level so they can access and back up or protect their data. And then one of the tools that we have here too is extremely it's important to understand when you're looking at your services, you're looking at your capabilities, you're looking at all these different environments that you have across Azure, and even broadly, even into your own data center if you have a hybrid environment. But the big thing is being able to see, right? Being able to visualize all the different resources that you have access to. And in this one, we have a service called Cloud Insights, which allows you to monitor your infrastructure. And I'm talking about cloud, all of your Azure infrastructure, monitor, and then take a look at your data that's in your in your data center environment. And a lot of this is really being able to draw the whole picture. It's like, hey, maybe you have some services that are in the cloud that are consuming resources regularly, but you have it as something that only needs to really operate once in a great while. So allowing you to shut these things down and turn them on when needed. Or you've got some resources that are in your data center where it's like, you are wasting resources in the data center. Why not move that off to the cloud so you can deal with the flexibility and the agility of the environment in the cloud? So having a tool that allows you to look at all of your resources, monitor, optimize, and with the end result being saving money in the end because you're able to see what you're using where and how you're using it, and then be smarter about how you use it after the fact. So very important to not only have the tools to run and solve challenges, but also take the tools so you can visualize and, again, help solve some of those cost challenges that are available to you. And then also one of the big ones here is compliance side of things. Is it a business requirement that you have? Is it a government requirement that you have? But really being able to make sure that your data meets your privacy and compliance goals. So it's a tool called Cloud Compliance that, again, runs on your data, runs on NetApp tools, but is able to control. So this you can access through the Cloud Manager tool suite and allow you to take a look at, HIPAA requirements and your PII requirements, or maybe it's GDPR, depending on where you have offices located, or the California privacy regulations. So being able to look at your data and set up your compliance goals and manage your data from that standpoint. So immediate servicing, automated, so you can, alerting and reporting. So these things, so if something you see is out of whack, or something that is out of whack, this tool will help you visualize and see that. So it's very important to be able to understand that you can meet compliance requirements and bringing those tools in there to help you address that. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up my presenting side of this and just let you know, hey, if you want to learn more on how you can migrate some of these unmigratable items and how you can control some of your data environments, you can go to, there's a link here. You should have access to this link, but solving these migrate the unmigratable challenges. And we have a lot of information in here that allows you to look at different scenarios and different solutions across many different workloads of how NetApp tools can help you solve these challenges. And there's a very quick and easy way to click and register, get access to the Azure portal if you want to look at your data environments with Azure NetApp Files, and go and run from there. So with that, I would love to jump into some questions.
Excellent. Yeah, great presentation, Jeff. Really appreciate that. Let me bring up this poll question for everyone out there in the audience while we do our Q&A session. The question on the screen I want to call everyone's attention to is, what additional information would you like about the NetApp solution you just learned about? So we'll leave that up. Let's see, lots of good questions coming in there, Jeff. I'm placing those in the folder for you. If any of those, catch your eye, feel free to interrupt me. First question I saw on the list I was just going to ask you here is, they say, are these services from NetApp or are these from Microsoft, and how does support work if we utilize this?
So that's a good question. So I talked about right from the get-go, we have a service that is called Azure NetApp Files, which is a file storage service. That service itself is a Microsoft service. The rest of the services, the virtual desktop service and the global file cache and those below, those are NetApp services. So the Azure NetApp Files is delivered right out of the Azure portal, so you just access and use it right out of the Azure portal, whereas the rest of the service, you will get those through the Azure Marketplace. Now, from a support standpoint, support you set up a support environment with NetApp for the NetApp services. And then for the Azure NetApp Files service, NetApp actually has technologists as well as sales teams that work, they're business guests of Microsoft. So if there's any support challenges or any struggles there, we will work through Microsoft. They will help solve the challenges and with NetApp backing throughout that whole process. So again, Azure NetApp Files is a Microsoft service. The rest of those services like VDS and Global File Cache and SaaS Backup are Microsoft delivered. Or sorry, I messed that one up. Are NetApp delivered services.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Let's see. Next question is the VDS service in place of WVD? Is that Windows Virtual Desktop?
Yeah. So Windows Virtual Desktop is the Microsoft Virtual Desktop service, right? That's the service that they deliver to offer that in the cloud environments. The Virtual Desktop service is a management tool set that runs on top of Windows Virtual Desktop. So you would have your users utilizing the Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and then Virtual Desktop service would help you deploy, manage, and optimize that environment. And in some of these scenarios, we've seen customers save 50% of their infrastructure costs once they put Virtual Desktop service on top of the WVD environment. So some things to consider as you're looking at Virtual Desktop deployments. This is on top of, not a replacement for Windows Virtual Desktop.
Got it. Okay. And then next question, how do I access Azure NetApp Files?
So one of the things I touched on briefly, but just to make sure to understand, because Azure NetApp Files is a Microsoft service and it's delivered with NetApp technology, it is accessed directly out of the portal. So if you go in and you look at, if you have your console for the Azure portal, and you go in there and you look at storage services, you will see in there Azure NetApp Files. So it's directly delivered from Microsoft. Or obviously you can just go into the search bar in the portal and say, type in Azure NetApp Files, and it'll pop up right there. But that'll give you access directly to the service. You can go in there and set up a storage environment and then build what we call capacity pools, so pools of data for your different profiles and all that, and then you set up your volumes within those pools. But the big one is also when you go in there, you will see Microsoft has a registration piece. So you'll see the service, you'll go in, but before you can actually deliver any data environments or any shared files volumes, you will need to hit a register. And that's registering with Microsoft. That isn't coming to NetApp and other than through how we support and work with Microsoft. So you'll go in there and just do a quick registration. It is a fully GA service. It's been GA for over a year and a half now. We got thousands of customers on it. And the big one, though, is that you do have to go through that process before you can actually deploy data in the environment.
Got it. Okay. And then this is a good question here from Patrick. I mean, folks typically think of NetApp being a physical, appliance you put in the data center. But what you're talking about here, is this a cloud service, or is the data stored on premises?
So in all of these services, these are all delivered through cloud, right? There is not an on-premise aspect to these unless you set up a target to send data or replicate data between cloud and the Azure environment or the SaaS backup environment, or the 365 in that case. But so these are like Azure NetApp Files. This is all within the data center. With the cloud volumes on tap, which I touched on briefly, which is a full NetApp experience, that one specifically runs on compute within the Azure data center and on top of storage within the Azure data center environments as well. So all of these services are delivered in the cloud. They are not delivered on premises.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have in our Q&A session, Jeff. There's still a number of other, maybe more technical questions left for you there in the queue. Hopefully you can respond to. But thank you so much for being on the event today.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
For more information on the NetApp solution, check out the handout that's available there for download in your audience console. Migrate enterprise workload data easily. And this is a joint solution brief between Microsoft Azure and NetApp. That has some additional information beyond what Jeff covered. So make sure that you download that. And of course, visit netapp.com for more information and to sign up and try out these solutions for yourself. All right. And with that, it's time now for our next presenter on today's EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce Vanessa Toews, Solutions Architect for Microsoft 365 at Druva. Vanessa, are you there?
I am. Thank you guys very much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Take it away.
All right, absolutely. So today we're going to talk about protecting your Microsoft 365 content. Right. My name is Vanessa Toews. I have been a 365, actually a Microsoft 365 architect as long as 365 has been around, but even going back as far as the very first version of SharePoint and other Microsoft technologies like their business intelligence platform. So for those during that time, right, since that first version of SharePoint, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of companies from all industries, as well as companies of all sizes. And, I have focused that part of my career on helping people understand how to use these technologies. Like, how do you solve these business problems that you're dealing with? And, with over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of messaging around backing up information in 365. And it's so very different than what you used to hear about on-prem. It was never a question for a company to protect their databases, protect their servers, protect their SharePoint implementations. But in 365, it seems the messaging is different a little bit. Right, 365 is reliable, and yes, it absolutely is more reliable today than it was 5 years ago, than it was even last year. We can get everything out of the recycle bin. Whatever is driving this messaging, it's incorrect, and it's not true. So why then is it important to back up your 365 content? Now, part of the answer comes from where you are. So what problems have you solved? What problems are you solving? And what problems do you plan to solve within 365 over the next, several years? And any one of you could be on a completely different path. Some not using Teams and using Zoom. Some really focused on OneDrive and SharePoint, but not doing any more of using any of the analytics that you might have, available to you in your licensing. So depending on that, right, and that adoption of how you're adopting 365 technologies, right, that adoption over time equates to exposure. So those business problems, content going in and going in. It's the only place that you really see a storage decreasing in 365 is if a user is deleted completely, right? And after the purge window, after the window of like 93 days, their data truly goes away. So you might see some shrinkage there. But the core threats that Microsoft have identified to 365, compromised credentials, compromised endpoints, of course, cyber attacks. And for me, I do believe, right, depending on the organization, that the 365 administration can also pose a threat to data loss. Right? So what is it that we're trying to secure? When I first saw this stat of like 17.4%, I kind of had to think back of all the years of content that or companies that I've worked with. And yeah, I think it's pretty right on, right, with 10 to 20% of that information being sensitive. You've got call centers that might have, audits for calls, and they've got customer information, account numbers, information about a customer or HR with employee files. So those are the things that we're talking about that you have a potential for loss. Now, in 365 and actually in Microsoft's cloud, it's very straightforward. It's a shared responsibility model. And you only have to look to your own end-user license agreement for Microsoft to tell you exactly what your responsibility is. Right? You need to regularly back up your information. So I don't have to sit here and talk about Gartner or any Forrester or any of these other things, but truly, Microsoft has already documented what your responsibilities are. Right? Protect your own information. They're there to back up and protect their platform so they can continue servicing, customers for $17 to $27 a user. Now, the impact of that loss, right, that can be absolutely internal or even external, right, from the financial loss. If you have some regulatory compliance that you basically, you're out of compliance to the actual brand damage that occurs, all the way down to your loss of market share. I mean, I think it's easy enough to see exactly what happens to an organization when there is some type of data loss, data breach. Now, where do you face these threats in 365? Like, where does it come from? Well, admins happen and users happen. Right? Ultimately, people with permissions are the ones that initially, I think, have the most at risk, right? Whether it is intentional or unintentional, it doesn't really matter. From an admin perspective, so how does this happen? How is it that this person affected and literally wiped out the information, all the chat information for 145,000 employees? It's easy for me to realize that like this stuff can happen, and the reason is Microsoft's administration is really wide and it's deep. So if you are an organization that has a very high, right, employee to help desk or employee to admin ratio, that's like a huge implication or a huge problem for you. Is that it's I call it the right, what's on the other side of that button effect. That sometimes there's just not enough time for these people that are managing both 365, and maybe they have to be an admin for Salesforce or Okta. There's not enough time. So because of that, this guy created a policy, applied it to the wrong group, and there's no recovery from that. Right? There's no undo button in there. So that happens. So you've got from an E3 to an E5, you can have so many different admin centers and areas where policies can affect content, where you can lose information. In SharePoint alone, I just picked literally 4 that you probably already see in your help desk ticketing system. Right? I had access to this yesterday. I can't get to it today. Help. Either deleting a column. Today it's so much easier with the UI. Right? It looks better. It's easier to create these columns to tag so that people can do things with. So they're creating these columns and then they're affecting that column, whether it's deleting or mass updating unintentionally. Like, help, I don't know what I just did. Moving content between libraries. Now, the move function in SharePoint is not the issue. The issue comes when users don't realize that folder that they're selecting has 10,000 files and 400 folders, subfolders nested. And they kick off a move, and somewhere, somehow in the middle of this, right, it's the volume. It's not a migration tool. But because there's no message that says, hey, you're trying to move, 24 gigs and 1,400 items. Are you sure you want to do this? And so the help desk ticket that you'll see about this is, hey, I moved this stuff, but half of it's over here, and the other half, I think the other half is over here, right, in my original place. I don't know what to do. Help. There's no undo for that. It's not recoverable. When you have someone like me who goes out and builds an HR employee file site, and we build a security model around a site, around the content, right? The HR manager says, hey, I want 2 people to see everything, these 4 people to see the active employee content, these other 2 people to see the terminated employee content. That's a security model. So if that's affected, there is no way in SharePoint of saying, hey, how do I fix this, right? How do I get back to what it was yesterday? Now, the areas of OneDrive very specifically, and it's not as much OneDrive as it is the OneDrive sync technology. So OneDrive is a file storage, but it also is a sync technology. And you can use that sync on OneDrive itself, right, or SharePoint sites. So the threat to ransomware isn't just in OneDrive, but it's the fact that I have this open connection on my desktop. And remember, compromised credentials, compromised endpoints were one of the top 2 threats to 365. So if I have access to this content that is in the cloud, that is where the potential for the files to be encrypted, deleted, or modified to a point that they are not recoverable, right, that I cannot access this. So I have to be able to restore. I have to be able to restore not just one employee's file, but multiple. Now, there's more issues around the OneDrive sync that are problematic, both from an end user and an admin. So from an end user's perspective, I have sync, and I have these 10,000 files, and I delete that. Well, if I delete that from OneDrive, the browser, I actually get one folder, and it's easy for me to recover. So yeah, great, recycle bin's going to work. But if I actually delete that from my desktop, I actually have 1,400 line items in my recycle bin in my OneDrive to have to figure out, plus everything else. So there's problems that affect your data and your ability to restore from unintentional acts. Now, when you have, and it's not even just necessarily a ransomware, but ultimately, right, that's the scenario. Asking 1, 2, or 3 employees is not necessarily a big deal. To have them go to restore to a point in time where you know the data is safe, right? It was prior to the ransomware attack. But when you start having whole offices or maybe entire departments of 20, 30, 50, 500 people affected by ransomware, there is no global management, no way within 365 that you can manage that. It's not scalable. And so these are the problems that I chose in my career to make this transition. Having helped companies for so many years learn how to use these technologies, it is evident that they are not protecting it, and there's absolute use cases after use case throughout every single one of these apps in 365 where you're going to experience, you have the potential to experience loss. So with InSync, right, backing up Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive, it's focused on use case. It's not just let's go get this, and let me make sure I can back that up. But we talk about these use cases. We focus our development and our build around, and every single thing that we bring into InSync and how we protect your information around the real-world experiences that you're facing today. All right, so we're going to jump into our demo here. But you've heard me talk about 365 and, that I used to help build solutions for companies with SharePoint and BI. Part of a solution, and sometimes you'd have to find pieces of that solution with different apps. So 365 is absolutely the best platform. I love it. I love where it was, where it's coming, where it's going. It's an amazing platform for what your company is investing in. But it's missing that thing to be able to recover from unintentional or intentional acts of data loss, deletion, whatever it might be. So let's go take a look at a couple of the examples that I talked about. And I'm going to make sure I'm pointing to my right screen here. So the scenarios, we talked about these use cases. We're just going to focus on a couple of these scenarios. So my permissions, I used to have access, now I don't. How do I recover from that? So whatever way this person was removed, and believe me, someone deletes. People delete all the time. They think someone should be there or shouldn't be there. Right, so here's our InSync console. And before I do that, let me just pop up this other window right here. So this is also, you have 2 components to this. An end user's ability to restore their own to an undefined, beyond 90-day window, beyond 30-day for OneDrive. So this is our UI for that. I can do self-service, which I think I can't really spend as much time on this. And then, of course, our management console. So InSync protects both endpoint devices as well as 365 and other cloud-based applications. And we're going to continue to build out on the areas of protection. So let's go restore our SharePoint permissions. Now, InSync backs up and protects Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and of course, which I don't have in my tenant, Exchange public folders right at this point in time. So I'm an admin, I have to go and restore my permissions for this. Now, I love that, as an administrator in the past, having item level permissions, item level restore is extremely important. Right? I don't need to restore the entire thing because there's a potential for other things to have been updated since my last backup. In this case, I just need to restore the permissions, and that's it. So I'm going to restore these permissions in place, and we're going to come back to this, but we'll go to our next use case right after we give it time to restore. Now, I talked about deleting a column. Now, you can actually, it's not even just deleting a column, it's affecting a column. Because it's easy and it's a little bit more visual, right, and people are using this in Teams, I can actually affect, because it's very easy to do this, I can affect a history of data, whether it was literally an accident, or, in fact, I can actually delete this column. Right, so however I've impacted this, and because it's also so much easier to have this, and people are building out, both reporting and building out workflows based upon that. If this stage, if closed one, whatever those combinations are, they're starting to utilize more and more of the SharePoint applications to build the solution. So in my case, this document library, that was an example of. So I'm just going to delete it on purpose. So this document library is a contracts library. Contracts library I've seen are, they go back years. They could have thousands of files. And if your company is invested in the reporting, right, the next time this Excel file, if they just use a basic or if they use Power BI or Tableau, this data is gone. So now my reporting and that part of my solution is gone. So let's go back to our InSync. And we're going to go back to our deleted column site. And I'm going to go back to my latest solution or my latest backup. But this is also where you can go back to prior points in time. That's a big jump, of course, but every single day, right, if I choose SharePoint and maybe this site to be backed up and protected twice a day, right, I'll see two snapshots per day. So I can go back to a point in time to restore. But in this case, what I'm doing now, once again, I don't need to restore the entire thing, but I do need to restore just this library. And I can restore right to this library, which is what I want to do, but I can also restore this library to another site. So think about that if I do have 24 gigs of data and I do need to move that to another site. Right, this site splitting, I can move that particular library off to a different site. So in this case, restore it to the same site, and I want to override the settings of that library because I need both the metadata back, I need the files in the metadata, and I need that column back. So that's why I need that settings. So the last use case we'll look at really quick is affecting a security model. This site's definition of security is 2 people can see everything, 4 people can see active employees, 2 different people can see terminated employees. I cannot share externally. I cannot even share to anyone else in this organization. It is a highly designed and managed site. That being the case, having seen a lot of different sites, people don't often document what the permission model was. Right? What was the permission model? And when we're talking about an HR director, they're not going to really know about necessarily the technology of the permission model. So I need to be able to recover from that. However this act was done, right? I'm affecting the permission model. So now I've compromised the security of the terminated employee's content. So how do I recover from that? There's no undo. Right? So I'm going to go back to my InSync. I can go back to my point in time for my employee files, And once again, right, that granularity that's going to help me. I don't need to restore content. I do need to put back the permissions in here. That's it. None of my content was affected. So I'm going to restore that. All right, so this is kicked off. Let's go back and take a look at whether or not these things whether or not we actually restored this. All right, so we should see a Dell. It was pretty quick. I restored just the permissions of the site. Right? Deleted column. Our stage content and all of the values are back in. Our metadata. Now remember what metadata is important about too. The other problem that metadata does help is the problem of I can't find it. So if I want to go search for or filter by anything that's lost or won, so it's not just reporting and it's not just flow, right? You're using a process automation. It has an impact across everything. All right, then our next one. Our last one was, did we put back the security model of this terminated employees? Yes. And so there we are in terms of our, high level, just about some of the SharePoint ones. There are use cases riddled throughout 365 about where it's not just about a file, right? It's also about settings, permissions, metadata that can be lost and that's not recoverable. So that's where in Sync by Druva, it protects your 365 and we close the gap on your security.
Great presentation.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was gonna give my tip if I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, great presentation, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Oh, you ready for some Q&A with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Or you know what? I might as well. I'll just give this tip. Here's one of my number one tips I would always give customers with 365 in terms of security or protecting yourself, right? So oftentimes people turn on the audit log and they look at it and they see that there's these default policies. But what they also do is, or what they also don't do is they don't act upon them. It's one of the best things for you to be able to monitor and look at and even begin to tailor is in the security and compliance and using this audit log. So creating plans for how you respond to those can be very simple. It doesn't have to be too complex. So I'll give you an example of one. One is that you have these individuals that compromise credentials or potentially compromised endpoints. And an alert is fired off for impossible travel. And you see it over and over and over, and you don't act upon it. And the people on the other side will keep knocking on your door in whatever way until they potentially find a way in. So if you could act upon that, there's 4 simple things that I could give you advice on about impossible travel. 1, for the individual that's affected, reset their password, right, and force a log out of their account on all devices. Number 2, because there's a potential for compromised endpoint, scan that device for any malware. And then number 4, I think I did one, this is actually number 4. Number 4, go and follow that alert, and it'll take you through to the Azure side where you can see exactly what IP that impossible travel occurred from, and you can blacklist that. So there's small things that you can do. Now, if you don't do anything, if you don't act upon any of those alerts, then my recommendation is you shut it off, because visibility generally equates to accountability. And if you've had this, from a security perspective, this alert firing over and over saying that you've had an issue with Jane Smith's account, and then potentially, she's the one who ends up being compromised, there'll be accountability for that. So create plans for any one of those alerts that are firing, and then also, shut off the alerts. All right, let's open it up for our Q&A.
Yeah, great feedback, great tips. Perfect. And that way I'll bring up this poll for everyone out there. What additional information would you like about the Druva solution? And we'll just leave that up while we do some Q&A. So first question I want to ask you, Vanessa, is, you talked about Microsoft, how they do things. what does Microsoft have to say about what you've brought up here?
Well, I wouldn't say Microsoft has responded to me personally or even Dhruva, but I think their response to most things you can find in their roadmap. Their response is, they're responsible to their customers. So if those issues occur, right, that gets escalated, it gets put on their radar, and they solve those problems. So there's been no necessarily direct response, but you can see if you actually visit the 365 roadmap, which I look at a couple of times a week, you'll see the problems that that they're solving. And some of them, that I've talked about, there's nothing on the radar for. On the roadmap, I should.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Next question. They're asking, what does Dhruva cover for Microsoft 365? Do you have access to our information after it's backed up?
No, that's a good question, actually. So we back up, right, as I mentioned before, with Microsoft, Exchange Online, Exchange Public Folders, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. Right, and we'll continue to build on that. As for do we have access to your data, the answer is no. Right? There's an encryption process that occurs where your keys are only accessible by you. So we have no direct access unless you invite us into your environment and need some troubleshooting. So.
Got it. Okay. And then, do you support storing user information in different locations?
Oh, absolutely. Both on the Exchange and OneDrive, we already have that with our multi-geo solution. So, we use, of course, your data is stored in AWS. So the AWS regions all over the world. And then in early this year, actually, we're going to be releasing our multi-geo for SharePoint. So we'll be able to do the same with, the main part of where your file content is concerned and your information.
Excellent.
That's a good
nice
question.
feature.
Also, yeah.
Yeah. And then you probably heard this one before. They say, my technical account manager says I don't need backup. Are they wrong?
Yes, they are wrong. I mean, they're not responsible, right? They're not responsible to your leadership. They're not, if you're a publicly traded company, they're not responsible to your shareholders or any of that. So if your content is affected, they're not going to be the one that's scrambling. So I would tell them to go read the shared responsibility model and the end user license agreement. And I've heard this question a couple times. It's very interesting that you have a TAM that can a TAM is a technical account manager for Microsoft. That could actually state that.
Cool. So last question I wanted to ask you, and because we're not going to have time to get to all these questions, so many great questions coming in, is how should people get started with Dhruva?
The best, I would say the best way is schedule a one-on-one demo. I barely touched on, the strength of our protection platform. So schedule a one-on-one. We've actually had customers just go in and you can go online and actually try our platform, right? You have a trial window. So if you go to dhruva.com, you'll be able to see the information there yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Well, a really cool live demo. Thank you so much for showing that to us today. Vanessa, we really appreciate your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and everyone enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Thank you to Dhruva. Thank you, Vanessa. And I want to remind everyone to check out the Handouts tab there under the Dhruva link. You can actually download the full ebook of a comprehensive Microsoft 365 backup. This is the Gorilla Guide Express Edition to Comprehensive Microsoft 365 Backup. Go ahead and just download that PDF, and you can read the book after today's presentations. And now it's time for our next Amazon $500 gift card winner. This is going to Dickerson Moreno from Minnesota. Congratulations. Dickerson Moreno from Minnesota. Still one more gift card to give out on the EcoCast today, so stay tuned for that announcement. And with that, it's time for our next presentation on today's EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. David No, Vice President for Products and Engineering at Metallic. David, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much.
Great to have you. Take it away.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for having me. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thanks for spending time with us today. So I am David No. I've actually had a title change recently. I'm now CTO for Metallic, which is the Commvault division delivering our SaaS portfolio. I'm happy to share with you today some of our approaches and capabilities around protecting Microsoft environments on premises and in the cloud. So I think everyone has heard this many times. I've certainly talked about it quite a bit in that we have a new reality, which is now, stable in its change, which is kind of a funny way to say it. But I think we're all familiar with the change in work environment, and due to the distributed nature of the workforce and how we're working today, that leveraging cloud platforms, applications, and infrastructure has been accelerated. The advent or the rise of Office 365 and collaboration tools like Teams, using Azure services for infrastructure, other SaaS services, migrating on-premises resources to the cloud, leveraging all of those things while still dealing with largely a heterogeneous environment, while Microsoft heavy and Microsoft focused. Often there are other applications in that ecosystem that you have to manage. And this has created really a very fluid situation with cloud products or cloud initiatives that have been significantly accelerated, right? I've heard customers tell me, a 2-year cloud plan has been accelerated to a 6-month plan. And these plans don't really alleviate any of the responsibilities as an IT professional that you might have, right? In terms of, compliance, backup requirements, retention requirements, avoiding silos of data, which are naturally being created as cloud services are adopted. And really top of everyone's minds is the threat of ransomware and malware. The recent events have really shown that, the danger and the level of effort that bad actors are going to in order to gain access to corporate data and corporate environments for any number of reasons. And so, where we're starting to see data protection in this environment is really another aspect of security. What is it that can be done in order to secure environments, not just in cases, to prevent breach, but what happens after a breach? How can they recover from such an event? And having a data protection solution in place becomes part of that strategy, and that's kind of how we're seeing attitudes towards backup and data protection change. And really, what's happening in this, as well as the environments change, it's important to have flexibility, right? In that a backup solution needs to be able to not just protect you now, but also in transition and in the future. No one is really static right now, whereas data centers were gradually moving to the cloud, right? There was time to plan and kind of anticipate what was happening. Now it's so much accelerated that it's hard to predict when things are going to move. And so having a modernized approach to backup and recovery in the form of backup as a service really gives you that kind of flexibility and capability to adapt as your business changes. And really, in part of that consideration is that, even though we're Microsoft focused here, and even though, you may be focused on Microsoft, the reality is that Microsoft has now fostered an ecosystem of applications and data sources from many different vendors. Just looking at what can run on Hyper-V on-prem, or in Azure, you have SAP HANA and various flavors of Linux that can run in the cloud. Applications are being lifted and shifted to Azure VMs and infrastructure and storage? How is it that you continue to protect all of these solutions or all of these data sources, all of these environments from a single solution, right? That really simplifies your life instead of adds more complexity. Point solutions that only protect Office or only protect certain workloads, while they might seem on the surface great solutions in the interim, you're only taking on technical debt. Right, you're taking on technical debt from an expertise and supportability perspective, vendor management, complexity in administration, and all of those things. So having a solution that can, in fact, span the hybrid cloud scenario, where really we're all going to be for a long time, right, is quite important and can bring significant benefits in terms of operational costs as well as reducing risk across the board. And that's where Metallic Backup as a Service comes into play. What we did is we took the enterprise grade data protection from Commvault, the technology and the experience and the best practices that we've been able to build over the past 20 years and become a leader in the data protection space, and combine that with the best of SaaS in order to produce Metallic. It's a cloud native focused solution delivered as backup as a service that incorporates the scalability and performance, not just scalability from a cloud perspective, like we can handle many thousands of users of customers, but also scalability, security, and protection that is focused on our customers. That is, we can scale from a customer with a handful of users and maybe 10 terabytes to tens of thousands of users and petabytes of backup, both on-prem and in the cloud. Our product portfolio encompasses everywhere your data lives, not just from kind of your end user data sources like endpoints, right? We have endpoint data protection, as well as collaboration tools and solutions like Office 365. We also have our hybrid backup portfolio, protecting assets both on-prem and in the cloud. These include VM and Kubernetes backup, Metallic database backup, and Metallic file and object backup. And I'm going to go into each one of those in a little more detail along the way here. But we have taken Commvault technology and built on top of Azure native technology to really bring a great solution to the market to help our customers. As a cloud native solution, the Metallic control plane, it runs in Azure, right? It is based in Azure for scalability. It is based in Azure for the security and features that Azure brings to the market as one of the leading cloud solutions or cloud providers today. We take care of maintenance, infrastructure, upgrades. All of that is handled by us, right, as a SaaS solution. But we recognize that data is in many different places, and so one of the key parts of this is understanding where you should store your backup data, right? For Office 365 and endpoints, we include storage with the solution. They're highly distributed SaaS to SaaS kind of applications, or in the case of endpoints, this is data that you don't necessarily want to bring back into your data center. And so we include unlimited storage with these solutions that comes with the service. For cloud workloads and on-premises workloads, what we really found and what our customers told us was that, look, we want backup storage close to our production workloads. That's a best practice. We want it close to the production workloads, and we want a copy in the cloud, for offsite data protection, air gap security, and resilience and redundancy. And we let you do that. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but what we actually call this a SaaS Plus concept. So in the cloud, for say, SAP HANA backup in the cloud, you can either use Metallic Cloud Storage, or you can back it up to your own Azure Blob Storage. That's perfectly fine. If you wanted to use external cloud storage, we could support that too. On premises, though, what you really want is having a full copy of the data on-prem, and not just a cache. We're talking about a full backup copy of your data that you can manage where you can say, I want seven days worth of backups on premises. I also want a copy in the cloud. And so this allows for scale, right? We don't force you to move data over the wire to the internet all the time. You get to choose how much you keep on premises. You get to choose, and you get to still choose the cloud storage that you want to use, whether it's from Metallic, if you want to buy it from us, or whether you want to use your own cloud storage. And so scalability is really paramount here, right? If you scale beyond 100 terabytes and really back up and restore over the wire becomes challenging. There's just so much data that you can push over the wire, even with compression and deduplication and all the network efficiency technologies that we've incorporated. And this is a big factor in being able to support hybrid on-prem workloads. For Office 365, I think it's really important, and I'm sure you've heard this from others, that you have comprehensive coverage, and we do, right? So we have coverage for Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, and this is granular backup restore capability. You can restore in place, out of place. You can download the data on premises into a PST or MSG file. This is all here for you. It provides you complete coverage of all the data sources in Office 365 where you have end user data. We also give you an e-discovery component as an option to be able to search that data for discovery purposes, right, for legal, HR, and others. From Teams, this is something that is in particular something that's really exploded, right? We use Teams every day. We work with customers who use Teams every day, and it's really becoming kind of the de facto standard in collaboration, particularly in the Microsoft area, right? And so we're introducing some extremely comprehensive Teams coverage, right? Where we will be able to, where we're able to back up and restore Teams data, at a very granular fashion. We can bring back data in place. We can restore a whole team. You can restore channels or tabs or posts, right? These are all things that are particular to Teams, and the interface here is extremely important. We're seeing this more and more with customers being one of the primary considerations, at least as important as email. And so these capabilities are really excited about. It's something that a lot of customers have had a very positive reaction to, and we're happy to bring this to our customers. For VM and Kubernetes backup, this is quite comprehensive again, and this protects this offering, which is priced per VM. You can buy it in 10 packs of VMs. Covers workloads on premises as well as in the cloud. So just like our other hybrid workloads. So what does this mean? You have on-premises VMware, but you also have VMC on AWS capability, as well as AVS and Azure being able to protect VMware on-prem and in the cloud. Hyper-V on-prem, native Azure VM data protection is incorporated where you don't have to deploy anything. You can just sign up for the service, configure your Azure credentials into our portal, and then you can go and start backing up your Azure VMs with snapshot and streaming backup right away. And one thing we're really excited about here is Kubernetes. We're seeing an explosion in Kubernetes, rapid adoption of containerization technology. And I'm proud to say that we're one of the only backup as a service vendors with comprehensive Kubernetes support. So any CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution, on-prem, OpenShift, Tanzu, what have you, as well as cloud capabilities like AKS in Azure. As we see companies modernizing their applications and moving to containers and more modern distributed architectures, this has become more and more important in the market for customers in general. And it's protection not just of persistent volumes, but things that really define an application, right? It's one thing to bring back the data, but kind of that's only one piece of the puzzle. You also want to bring back things like custom resource definitions, and you want to protect applications. That's what's important for Kubernetes, and that's where we're focused and have significant capability. And one thing we're very excited about is that we are actually giving away our Kubernetes support for free. So if you buy at least one 10-pack of VMs, which is not very expensive at all, you will have unlimited Kubernetes backup capability forever, for as long as you're a subscriber to Metallic. All you have to do is provide your own storage, and we will give you the service for free. So this, you have to sign up, become a subscriber by, I think, May. I forget the exact date offhand, I'm sorry. But as long as you're a subscriber by then, a paid subscriber, then you have Kubernetes capability for free. Now for databases, right now we've covered compute. The second part of an application is normally database. And here we're providing comprehensive coverage as well with Microsoft SQL Server, which we can protect on-prem and in the cloud, as well as SAP HANA, which is one of the major applications that Microsoft is trying to drive to run in Azure, right? That's quite important. So this is, again, also on-prem or in the cloud. It is a SAP certified solution and can provide you that level of backup and restore granularity that you really need for such a critical application. And then finally, file and object backup, right? This is kind of the backbone of workloads in general. It is where, you know, what is interesting about it really is that it's not interesting for files, right? It's just file systems, Linux and Windows. However, the trick here is that we also incorporate backup of Azure Blob and Azure Data Lake storage, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage. So as you modernize your applications, you start using modern storage capabilities, this is a service that can protect that for you. And really, this sums up the flexibility that we have, right? Backup is a service that is flexible, that can adapt to moving workloads on-prem and in the cloud. It gives you choice around how you want to back up that data, either directly to cloud, using on-prem storage, or using a mix. But really the key here is that we focus on simplicity. So while this kind of flexibility might seem daunting, we provide very much a tailored experience that guides you through the choices to make in order to protect your data adequately. So quick demo. I know we're running a little bit tight on time, but let me just give you a quick view of the interface here. So this is, I should be sharing.
I see it, David.
All right, great. This is what we call the hub. It is customizable with these tabs. If you have one of the solutions but not one of the others, you don't have to have it up here, right? And as we add tabs, it shows you only the most pertinent data that you need to know at any given time, user management right in the interface, documentation, as well as support. Now, I mentioned before that it's very simple to add configuration. So here, for instance, SQL Server, it is a case where if you're configuring a SQL Server instance in the cloud and you want to back up to cloud storage, it's literally 4 steps. On-prem, it's 6 steps. That's it. We ask and we guide you through deploying the backup. Here's on-prem, and you can see it's 6 steps here, and we guide you each and every step of the way. It's very simple. Okay. This is actually common. This kind of experience is common for Office 365, SAP HANA, Azure VMs, Kubernetes. It really lets you get past what could be hard about configuring a backup as a service capability and really makes it streamlined and straightforward while still allowing you the flexibility to adapt to your particular deployment. So I will stop the share for now, just in the interest of time. So last thing I really want to talk about here is our partnership with Microsoft, right? And so we have a long and storied history with them, 20 plus years of a relationship at executive level. And we extended and enhanced that partnership back to the end of June, early July, with a strategic agreement to engage in future development work, to market joint solutions together, and really to engage in the field to help our mutual customers. So Microsoft saw so much value in our solution and how we were leveraging Azure technology that we entered into this agreement. So you can be assured that we're working hand in hand with Microsoft to really reduce the friction or minimize the friction that you have in order to leverage Azure solutions and Microsoft solutions, and also to protect them. Right? And to that end, we're available in the Azure Marketplace today, so you can leverage your EA and be able to buy Metallic right off the marketplace. You can do that now. It is, again, a way to make it as simple as possible for you to leverage all the benefits of Metallic and start protecting your environments today. And if you want to try it out, the free trial is available on the website, metallic.io. Very simple to get started. And that's a free 30-day trial that you can experience at your leisure, and we're happy to help you with it also if you'd like. And so thank you very much. Appreciate the time, and any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation. Thanks for taking a few minutes there to do the live demo. I love the user interface. Looks super easy to use and get started. I know it could help a lot of folks out there who need better data protection and disaster recovery. So let me bring up this poll question while we take some questions from the audience. I want to call everyone's attention to the question on the screen that just says, what additional info would you like about the Metallic solution? So let's see, David, first question I saw that came in here, they're asking, let's see, they say, when we back up our on-prem Hyper-V or SQL workloads with Metallic, will Azure throttle us as they do with Office 365 backups? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely not. So on-premises, we have the capability to leverage your own storage on-prem. There's no throttling there. That's all up to you and how much network bandwidth you have. And then we can leverage things like you can either just back up to or make a copy of that data to Azure Blob Storage or Metallic Cloud Storage. You can do that over your existing internet connection or with something like ExpressRoute, but there's no throttling at all.
Very nice. That's good to know. Next question, Azure provides native backup. What does Metallic offer above and beyond? What's your take on that?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So we like to talk about embracing and extending Microsoft functions, capabilities, technology. And so we provide a much broader experience than Azure Backup does in terms of platform support, in terms of the data types that we support, the types of services that we offer. And so Azure Backup is a great option for for customers who only want to back up, say, a handful of VMs. But the management experience, the capabilities, the hybrid cloud capabilities that we bring really go beyond what Azure Backup has.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked here looking at different questions. I like this one. Next one is cloud storage included with Metallic, or what kinds and types of cloud storage are available?
Yeah, great question too. So for our Office 365 and endpoint solution, storage is indeed included, and that's at no additional charge. It's unlimited storage for those solutions. For our hybrid solutions, we give you the option of either storing it in your own Azure storage, in your own on-premises storage, and or you can buy Metallic Cloud Storage. So there are some options, but the storage for the hybrid solutions is not included with the cost of the service.
Okay, good to know. And then they're asking, with this, are we still storing our data in Microsoft Azure when we back up Office 365?
Yes, yes, you are. It is separate infrastructure, separate security domain, and separate locations if you want it to be. So it is still in Azure, but we take advantage of the fact that we are transferring data over the Microsoft network backbone to avoid throttling as much as possible.
Got it. Okay. And then there was a question here from Jeffrey. He said that he used the handouts tab right there. If you click on that, it'll take you to the trial download for the Metallic solution. He said he signed up for that, and I encourage everyone to sign up for it and try it yourself. His question was, how long is the trial?
It's a 30-day trial, but it's fully featured. Yep, there's no limited functionality. It is a fully featured trial for 30 days.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for questions. There's still quite a few questions in the queue. Maybe we can get back to those folks after the event. We'll pass those questions along to you, David. But excellent presentation and demo. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to the audience for joining us on this event. Don't forget to sign up for that free trial of the Metallic backup solution to better protect your Microsoft 365 environment, as well as Azure services of all kinds. You can do that there in the Handouts tab if you click on the link that says Metallic. And with that, it's now time for our final gift card announcement. If you haven't answered the survey that's on the screen, I encourage you to do that now. The final Amazon $500 gift card is going out to Hong Yim from California. Congratulations, Hong Yim from California. Before you go, I want to encourage you to sign up for the 10 on Tech podcast. It's over in the iTunes store. And if you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming MegaCast or EcoCast event, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And finally, I hope to see you on our next event. That's happening next week. It's ensuring trust and security in enterprise IT and the cloud. This MegaCast will be next week, and you'll hear from Clumio, Okta, Psychotic, Fireman, and Alkira. And we'll also be giving out 5 Microsoft Surface Pro 7 tablets. So hope to see you on that event. After today's event, you'll be automatically redirected to our events website, and we've got lots of other events that we hope to see you on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the webinar today on Microsoft security and Microsoft 365 Azure-centric environments. I hope that you learned a lot and had a good time. I know that I did. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.